My name is Rachel Fowler. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and I'm a doctoral student in creative writing. The name of my exhibit is Story and Art: Representations in the Works of Ezra Jack Keats. So my exhibit highlights how Keats values diversity in both the form and the content of his books, and then also the positive reactions that came from those decisions. I chose this topic because one of my research areas is the intersection of visual art and story, and I think that Keats does both of those so well, so he was a natural choice for me. My favorite item in the exhibit is actually one of Keats's paintbrushes. It's the biggest paintbrush in the exhibit. It has a brown stem, and you can see if you look at the end, it's been whittled down to a point. It has these flecks of dried paint on it. And the reason I like it is because I feel like I'm always looking at the finished products of artists and writers, and it's nice to hold one of their tools in your hand and be reminded that it actually takes a lot of hard work to make good art.
My name is Jack Hoda. I'm from Petal, Mississippi, and I'm a master's student in English literature at the University of Southern Mississippi. The title of my exhibit is That Lavender World of Anarchy, the literary and queer cultural production of Carl Corley. My exhibit features Carl Corley, who was a queer author from Mississippi who wrote a lot of queer pulp fiction in the 60s and 70s. Carl Corley is a really unique voice in the queer pulp fiction era because he's one of the only prominent authors of the South, of the Deep South, Mississippi specifically. And he published over 20 novels, some short stories, some illustrations in Male Physique magazines, which were marketed as health magazines but widely used as pornography by gay men. And so his voice as that voice of the South is really important to think about because his novels really feature a lot of autobiography. He was, on top of being an interesting author, an interesting historical figure as being an LGBT person from rural Mississippi who fought in World War II in the South Pacific and then also worked in state government following the McCarthy trials, which were a governmental effort to weed out communism but also homosexuality from public life. So he publishes very overtly queer narratives under his real name, where many authors use pseudonyms, and was also a very active public official. He was an illustrator, so he illustrated his own covers, and also worked as an illustrator in the Mississippi and Louisiana State Department of Transportation. I chose Carl Corley because I am a queer person and I grew up in rural Mississippi and never really saw myself represented, and definitely still to this day, even though queer representation is far and wide much more popular, it's much rarer to see queer people in media that value the Deep South, value the rural life, and find acceptance and comfort there. So that's why Carl Corley stood out to me. And when I learned that we had almost all of his novels in our archive, I just had to do this exhibit. My favorite item in the exhibit is one of Carl Corley's novels that was about mid-career called Walk the Gay Night. It is the only novel that we know of that he published under a pseudonym, and I'm interested to understand why. It's very obviously him by the font style and the illustration and even the narrative structure, but I would be interested to learn more at the Duke University Archives that has an entire collection on his personal papers.
Hi, I'm Cindy Matthews. I live in Bethpage, Tennessee, which is about an hour outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm currently a second semester graduate student in the Masters of Library and Information Science program, and I'm also a public library director. The name of my exhibit is Making History: The Women of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and it profiles three women, Annie Devine, Victoria Gray Adams, and Fannie Lou Hamer, who were leaders in this political party. They were ordinary women who rose to greatness and were activists in their community and nationally. The exhibit features photographs, letters, pamphlets, narratives, and a political poster featuring Miss Hamer. I chose this topic after seeing a video created by the Director of Special Collections, Jennifer Brannick, which was about Freedom Summer. And it showed a lot of photographs that told stories I had never heard before about civil rights activism in Mississippi. So when I applied to do this program, I discovered these three women who were so ahead of their time and did amazing things, and they became the focus of the report. I have two favorite items in the exhibit. The first is a photograph of Victoria Gray Adams, and in this photograph, she looks very prim and proper and well put together, and I chose it because I really loved that it challenged stereotypes, I think both for prim and proper women and also for political activists. She looks very shy and demure, and she was actually a person who fought against great injustice. So in that way, it was a contrast to that photograph. Additionally, I think we have stereotypes about activists that they can't look like she did. So I found that piece really interesting. Secondly, of course, is the poster of Fannie Lou Hamer, who would be someone you would rarely see on a political poster in the 1960s in the South. She was really ahead of her time, and this poster was too. It's a great archival piece. It's in amazing condition, and it's such a wonderful piece of history that I had to make it the centerpiece of the exhibit.